Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. It's been an operation that has been ongoing for over 20 years. The U.S. war against terror and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. The U.S. military managed another big strike by eliminating the chief of the terror body, Ayman Al-Zawahiri, in a precision drone strike conducted on Saturday of the week gone by, in the heart of Kabul, Afghanistan. It's an important message. Barely a year after scurrying out of the country after 20 years in a haphazard and untidy pullout, the U.S. has affirmed its war against terror continues. And that's an important message for the world at large as well. Take a look at this timeline. The attack on the World Trade Twin Towers took place on September 11, 2001. The mastermind of that attack, which shook and changed the world, Osama bin Laden, was eliminated in a U.S. strike in Abbottabad in Pakistan, remember, in May 2011. Then it is, of course, that was 11 years after the attack, and in another 11 years, they have managed to now eliminate the current Al-Qaeda chief, Al-Zawahiri, and this time he has been found in Kabul, Afghanistan itself. The U.S. has come true to its intent that if you hurt U.S. interests, they will not leave you. Let's break down what we know of how this operation really was carried out. It's been a long-term goal, of course, but specifically planned over the last 1 year. Stage 1 was actually last year from August 2021 to April 2022 this year. The US was tracking the movements after their Afghanistan pullout of the Al-Qaeda chief. Stage 2, April 2022 this year. US officials confirmed that Zawahiri and family had moved to Kabul. The CIA briefed the White House about Al-Qaeda chief's location, and then came the next stage, which is stage 3. By July 2022, which is of course the month just gone by, when in the end of it these strikes were done, Joe Biden, the American president, met top aides, briefed about the possible operation as well. Finally, on July 25 is what reports are saying, the US president gave a nod to this precision-tailored airstrike. And finally, stage 5, carrying out the strike itself. The operations were carried out on July 31, a Hellfire missile used to kill the Al-Qaeda chief. Now, India hasn't said anything yet openly, but this is what the Indian establishment makes of the situation. That this will, of course, adversely affect the morale of the Al-Qaeda cadre in India. They're concerned that cadres of the Al-Qaeda may shift allegiance to the IS, which is the Islamic State. Taliban might provide safe haven to India-centric outfits like the Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba. That has been a long-standing concern since the American pullout. Zawahiri, stationed in Kabul, importantly, shows that close ties between the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban existed. And this Qaeda-Talib tie is against India's interests. Now, CNN News 18 had spoken exclusively to the Interior Minister of the Taliban government in Afghanistan just this weekend, when this US strike took place. And Sirajuddin Haqqani said that Al-Qaeda had no presence in the country. Well, those claims went up in smoke with this Al-Zawahiri strike. But here is what they have said now. The Taliban government, of course, is upset over these US strikes. They're saying that this killing is a clear violation of the Doha Agreement between the two. This attack is against the interests of both USA and Afghanistan. They're warning the US should refrain from any such attacks in future. They're saying the US needs to respect the rights of the Afghan people, and that a strike is a repetition of the failed experience of the last 20 years. But these are really empty words. The Taliban clearly is not threatening the America in any way. So with this US elimination of Al-Zawahiri, the current Al-Qaeda chief, has a Taliban-Qaeda Nexus been exposed, and how is the world really going to look at it? Before we get you more, listen in to how the American president announced the successful airstrike.
Zawahiri has been a leader of Al-Qaeda, the leader. From hiding, he coordinated Al-Qaeda's branches and all around the world, including setting priorities for providing operational guidance that call for and inspired attacks against U.S. targets. He made videos, including in recent weeks, calling for his followers to attack the United States and our allies. Now, justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more. To the families who lost fathers and mothers, husbands, wives, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, friends and co-workers on that searing September day, It is my hope that this decisive action will bring one more measure of closure. We make it clear again tonight that no matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you are a threat to our people, the United States will find you and take you out.
Listen in to the experts, how they are reacting, especially in America, to the successful elimination to the Al-Qaeda chief by the American military. And then we'll also get you some live experts joining us.
Nobody attacks the United States and gets away with it.
The most wanted terrorist in the world is now dead. The White House confirms the U.S. has killed 9/11 planner Ayman Zawahiri in a drone strike. That's prompting praise for U.S. intelligence agencies and the military.
This is a very, very symbolic success to bring one of the last of the original Al-Qaeda leaders who did so much damage around the world.
There have been months and maybe even years going into the targeting of Zawahiri.
President Joe Biden says the U.S. identified an optimal time to target Zawahiri about a week ago. He says the strike took place in Kabul, Afghanistan, Sunday morning local time.
None of his family members were hurt, and there were no civilian casualties.
The chair of 9/11 Families United is thanking those involved with the operation. She's also criticizing Biden for his recent trip to Saudi Arabia and former President Donald Trump for hosting a Saudi golf event. The group alleges that country helped fund the 9/11 attacks. The Saudi government denies that, and the 9/11 Commission found no proof of it. The White House says no American personnel were on the ground during the strike that killed Zawahiri.
It shows what our commitment is in terms of telling the American people in the world that we will not allow terrorism to go unchecked.
Vivek Mishra is PhD Fellow Strategic Studies Program, Observer Research Foundation. Farkhunda Zara Naderi is former MP and senior advisor of the former president on UN affairs. Glenn Carl is former CIA officer and author, and Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, former Indian diplomat, joining us on the show. I want to go across to our guest joining us from Afghanistan. Zara Naderi, I'm coming to you first up on how the Taliban will feel embarrassed as far as this strike is concerned. Just like Pakistan was embarrassed when Osama bin Laden was found in Abbottabad, similar embarrassment for the Taliban, because this is Kabul. And this couldn't have happened without the Taliban's knowledge.
Thank you for your question. I think it highlights the importance of the responsibility that Taliban as de facto authority of Afghanistan is holding right now in the country. We do understand that Taliban came into power by different reasons, but the two main reasons can be highlighted: the irresponsible withdrawal of international community in general, and particular NATO. And secondly, there was this responsibility given to Taliban beforehand in Doha agreement, meaning that Taliban had to act in a responsible manner for any kind of withdrawal that would take place.
Yes.
Having said that, I would like to highlight the responsibility of Taliban in this regard. First of all, yes, it is a sad news for all Afghans to see that one of the renowned terrorist leader was found in Afghanistan. But the positive side of that news is that eventually that one terrorist leader who was responsible for taking many innocent human beings' life and depriving many humans from their rights, including the, not only military, but, the civilian. Today, his power was eliminated forever.
Yeah, that's a good news. But Farkhunda, if I can just ask you, is this a reminder that the Taliban continues to be in bed with terrorists? That they themselves, of course, till the takeover, were themselves some of the most dreaded terrorists. And, that vein of theirs is not going to go away. That character of theirs is not going to go away. They continue to aid and abet terrorists.
I belong to a regime that has been in conflict with Taliban, but we've been through a peace process that unfortunately was aborted. But I think there has to be a commitment in any work that you do. So you have to uphold your commitment to believe that peace is a value and a commitment. And I asked the same, notion or definition to be respected by Taliban. So for Taliban to move towards a dignified peace, they've got to understand they have been giving the biggest chance that history ever can give to any particular groups. That they can, the way they have been asked to break all their ties with terrorist groups and to fulfill their national as well as international commitments. And one of them is, of course, to not only cut their ties, but also fight against terrorism.
Yeah.
Because terrorism is a threat to the global security. It's not only to the US. Right now, we have seen what US has been doing. It's actually taking the leadership.
Yes,
on the
and
global
actually,
level.
this
Let's
is
not forget
a
that.
revival of the respect that America, had and commanded. Because you may say whatever about their pullout, but America is the only country, really. Its financial might and position may have degraded, but it's the only military that can carry out such persistent strikes in another country and not really face any retaliation. And that's the might of America that is being reminded to us by these strikes. Glenn Carl is a former CIA officer. Glenn, do you believe this kind of, eases the pain a little bit from that very ugly, untidy pullout from Afghanistan? And this is also a reminder that the US can achieve its aims without actually being in Afghanistan.
Yes, well, President Biden spoke about some measure of closure. He hoped that this elimination of Zawahiri would offer to the family members of the hundreds or thousands of victims of Zawahiri's atrocities. I've never believed in closure, actually, but I do believe in justice. And this does eliminate a mass killer who had decided, as we all know, that he had the right to decide who lives and who dies and how they should live. So from this perspective, it is a triumph of intelligence and rendering of justice. Will it lessen the threat from terrorism in the short term? Perhaps, yes. Al-Qaeda has been largely, if not destroyed, rendered a shadow of what it was. But the phenomenon of jihadism, as you know, at least as well as I, continues. And so this will not end that threat. It is
a good message from America, that it is telling the world that its fight is not over. That is also
Absolutely.
important for the rest of the countries, including India.
Absolutely. Well, this was, as you may recall, I supported President Biden's decision to withdraw the soldiers from Afghanistan, ardent as I am as a counterterrorism action proponent. And I think I've always thought for literally decades that the United States fundamentally made an error in trying to fight terrorism by waging a war.
Yes.
It is a war, and the military is not the appropriate tool. The appropriate tool to fight terrorism, which was it's a function of broken societies and zealotry, is through intelligence officers, law enforcement officers, and occasionally special forces members of the military. And so this is an affirmation of, I think, the right way to approach counterterrorism.
Vivek Mishra, can I take forward from what Glenn Carl said with you? How do you see the role of Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent post this strike?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the relationship between the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda, and the various factions, including those in Africa, I'm glad you pointed out that they're strange bedfellows, and they continue to remain that. But the fact that, the Haqqani, Sirajuddin Haqqani, and his ties to the building that was destroyed clearly points out the direction of this. And while this operation was being carried out, Sirajuddin Haqqani was in a meeting of a 12-member group visiting from Pakistan. Also has given avenue to a lot of speculations about a secret deal being cut out with the Pakistanis.
Right.
Now, India shouldn't get too worried about all this, but I think so long as the over-the-horizon operations are concerned and over-the-horizon operations after the pullout from Afghanistan for the United States. I think it was always on the table. People talked about the power vacuum being created after the United States left, but I think they had substantial capabilities to carry out the over-the-horizon operations. And I think the war, this also signifies an important shift from the war on terror to the over-the-horizon operations. And I think therein lies the essence of counterterrorism cooperations and the evolution in the counterterrorism cooperations that we're going to see in the future.
Okay.
And that, that also creates space for countries like India, where we have, it was striking that the Quad statement a few months back actually mentioned counterterrorism cooperations. And many would, sideline and kick those statements saying that it's not possible at all. But I think, the central pillar being the United States and its strategy in the region, I think the Quad partners have a lot to substantially cooperate with India together with the United States in the cooperation.
Right.
Let me take that factions of Al-Qaeda.
Yes, very quickly, please. I'm running out of time.
In South Asia is concerned, I think India was always wary. And I think this really takes out an important concern, not just for India, but, for a lot of countries. But I think we will be monitoring the situation closely.
Yeah.
And this also creates space for counterterrorism cooperation.
Well, I've mentioned some of the concerns that India will have. Ambassador Anil Trigunayad, thanks a lot for your patience. What's your take on the American strike and the global message that it sends to everyone concerned?
Well, I think that this is something, if you remember, when Bush went in, he said that we will smoke them out. And now President Biden has said wherever they exist, we'll take them out. So that clearly says that the United States, as far as its own interests are concerned, as far as the retaliation and avenging the 9/11 is concerned, they are very serious. And they continue to chase the high-value targets that they considered were part of the 9/11. But in the process, what has happened is, as Vivek also mentioned, the role of the Haqqani group, the Rawalpindi establishment is also equally important in this.
Right.
I mean, Pakistan has always been able to encash its nuisance value by
with the
these kind
Americans,
of acts.
yes.
So in the process, the countries like United States tend to forget that from where the haven of terrorism or the masters of terrorists lie.
I have only 30 seconds left. Ambassador, can I just ask you very quickly, why is it that only American can do something like this? Why is it that this is not a model that India can follow, let's say, more repeatedly? We did it a couple of times in Pakistani territory.
Well,
why can't we do this more?
No, we continue to do so, but you don't have to really always advertise what you're doing, because that sometimes can backfire. But at the same time, I think every country has a right to defend itself.
Yes.
For the simple reason that the world has not even agreed to the definition of terrorism, what Prime Minister Modi had spoken at the United Nations. So the question, everybody is looking for their own small piece of the cake, and that's it.
Yeah, and in that, every country then, if it has a justifiable reason, must be allowed to do these precision strikes that America does. It cannot be that only America is able to do that and nobody else. And I think at the end of it, though, it is a good example for the rest of the world that the fight against terror must continue, and America continues to maintain its leadership position in that, certainly with a strike like this. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Remember, speaking of America, there is a flashpoint that's brewing as far as US and China is concerned. We will get you all the latest because Nancy Pelosi is expected to land in Taiwan in about 15 minutes from now. But in the meantime, let's also shift our attention to the Commonwealth Games that are happening in Birmingham, UK, where India has won multiple medals and several golds. But on Sunday, Youth Olympic Games champion Jeremy Ladringunga bagged India's second gold medal after he won the men's 67 kilograms weightlifting title with a spirited performance. Jeremy, who was one of the favourites to win gold after he clinched a gold in the Commonwealth weightlifting championship last year, made a Commonwealth Games record, lifting a total of 300 kilograms. I spoke to him about him being the next youth sports icon from the country, just 19 years of age, and how he has set his sights on an Olympic medal. Now, listen.
Jeremy, first of all, thanks a lot for speaking to CNN News 18, and heartiest congratulations to you for winning your gold. You have become the youth You have become the youth icon of Indian sports. Just 19 years of age, you started weightlifting just 10 years ago. Just share with us your emotions after winning the gold.
मैं बहुत खुश था और मैंने जो भी ट्रेनिंग में किया था और मैंने जितना एक्सपेक्ट लेके आया था कि इतना करना है उतना कर नहीं पाया, लेकिन मुझे जो चाहिए था ये गोल्ड है, जो मेडल था वो जीत कर आया, वो बहुत खुश हूँ मैं।
जी, आपने बहुत पेन में और इंजरी के साथ परफॉर्म किया। कैन यू डिस्क्राइब कैसा रहा परफॉर्मेंस आपके लिए, कितना मुश्किल था?
मैम जैसे हमने स्नेच स्टार्ट किया था, स्नेच में तो काफी सही चल रहा था बॉडी, और जैसे कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स का भी रिकॉर्ड बनाया था स्नेच में, और क्लीन एंड जर्क में भी काफी प्रिपेयर किया था मैंने इसके लिए। और हमने जैसे ही वार्मिंग अप स्टार्ट करने शुरू किया और मेरा मसल दोनों 28 और मेरा दोनों इन 28 जो है क्रैम्प होने लग गया और दोनों एकदम कैच हो गया था, मैं चल भी नहीं पाया और बैठने से भी पेन कर रहा था और खड़ा भी नहीं हो पा रहा था सीधा, तो बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था। लेकिन वार्मिंग अप में भी मैंने 120 तक किया था हमने तो सोच के आया था कि हमने वार्मिंग अप में 160 तक करेंगे और 160 के बाद स्टेज में जाके सीधा रिकॉर्ड लीफ लगाने के लिए या टोटल इम्प्रूव करने के लिए हमने सोचा था, लेकिन ऐसे बिल्कुल भी नहीं हुआ, क्योंकि गेम में तो कुछ भी हो सकता है और किसका ऊपर क्या होगा कुछ पता ही नहीं होता। फिर भी कोच साहब ने बहुत मोटिवेट किया मुझे और रोया था भी बहुत मैं उस टाइम पे, क्लीन एंड जर्क का टाइम पे बहुत रोया मैं समझ में नहीं आ रहा मैंने कितना, जो भी कोच साहब ने दिया था कम करके एकदम 154 भी मतलब यहाँ लिफ्टिंग खत्म होने के बाद मुझे पता चला कि इतना केजी है बोल के। बिल्कुल हार्ड भी था मैम, लेकिन खुश है अभी बहुत।
डिस्पाइट दैट, आप जो बता रहे हैं उसके बावजूद आपने 7 किलोग्राम ज्यादा लिफ्ट किया है अपने कंपेटिटर्स के खिलाफ और गोल्ड बहुत कॉम्प्रिहेंसिवली जीता है। मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ कि आपको प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने भी हेल किया एज अ यूथ फेस, सिर्फ 19 साल 20 साल के आप हैं, तो आपको रिस्पांस कैसा लगा भारत की तरफ से और आपके होम टाउन से, होम स्टेट से कैसा लगा रिस्पांस अभी तक का?
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है मैम, काफी मैसेजेस आया है और ट्विटर में भी काफी हमारा प्राइम मिनिस्टर सर ने और बाकी और भी ने बहुत ट्वीट भी किया मेरे लिए, इतना सारे प्यार दिया हमारा जनता ने, और मैं इन सब को देख के और भी इंस्पायर हूँ और मोटिवेट भी मिला है, मुझे खुद मोटिवेट भी हो गया और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा है। और अगले जो टारगेट हमने रखा है ओलंपिक्स के लिए, उसके लिए भी काफी मेहनत मुझे हेल्प करेगा इन सब में।
जी बिल्कुल, द नेक्स्ट ओलंपिक्स आर नॉट टू फार, बट जेरेमी आई वांट टू आस्क यू, द अदर डे आई वाज टॉकिंग टू संकेत, टू गुरुराज आल्सो, एंड वो कह रहे थे कि पिछले कुछ सालों में वेट लिफ्टिंग में बहुत सुधार हुआ है, बहुत इंप्रूवमेंट हुआ है और उसकी वजह से यंग टैलेंट बहुत आ रहा है, और आप उसका एक एग्जाम्पल हो जो यंग टैलेंट इंडियन वेट लिफ्टिंग में आ रहा है और परफॉर्म भी कर रहा है। आप कैसे डिस्क्राइब करोगे कि इंडियन वेट लिफ्टिंग में इतने सारे मेडल्स आना शुरू हो रहे हैं, तो आपको क्या लगता है कि इंडियन वेट लिफ्टिंग इम्प्रूव हो रहा है और यंग टैलेंट को प्रमोट किया जा रहा है?
यस मैम, जैसे देखे जाएंगे तो मैं भी यूथ से ही खेलते हुए आया है, यूथ वर्ल्ड से लेके यूथ ओलंपिक तक कंटिन्यू खेल के यहाँ तक सीनियर लेवल तक पहुंचा हूँ। और हमारा सरकार ने और हमारा साई और हमारा टॉप स्कीम की तरफ से इतना सपोर्ट मिला हम सबको, और जो हमारा यंग एथलीट्स जैसे मैं हूँ, हमको काफी सपोर्ट मिला है हर चीज में और कुछ कमी होने नहीं देता हर चीज में, इसलिए काफी आगे हम बढ़ रहा है हर गेम में। वेट लिफ्टिंग में भी पिछले 5-6 साल का देखे जाएंगे तो उसके हिसाब से तो हम बहुत आगे बढ़ रहा है और हमारा फ्यूचर में भी बहुत जल्द मेडल भी लेके आएंगे ओलंपिक्स में।
जी जी, ये वो ओलंपिक्स आपका नेक्स्ट टारगेट है बिल्कुल,
यस मैम, यस मैम।
अच्छा, तो आप ये विन आप किसको डेडिकेट करते हैं, कौन रहे हैं आपके करियर में बहुत सबसे ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट?
मैम एक ही को नहीं दे सकता हूँ क्योंकि बहुत मेहनत किया इसके लिए और इतना मसल प्रॉब्लम और वार्मिंग अप, बिना वार्मिंग अप होते हुए भी इतना गोल्ड के लिए मैंने लड़ा है, तो मैं एक ही को नहीं दे सकता। पहले तो मेरा पूरा इंडियन, हमारा देश को मैं डेडिकेट करना चाहता हूँ। और हमारा कोचेस और हमारा जो भी सपोर्ट स्टाफ, फिजियोस है, और मेरा फैमिलीज और मेरा ग्रैंडफादर और ग्रैंडमदर।
जी, मैं आपके फैमिली के बारे में पूछना चाहती थी कि आपके पेरेंट्स ने बहुत सपोर्ट किया होगा, क्योंकि आप 6 भाई बहन हैं और आपके
जी।
फादर मदर ने बहुत सपोर्ट किया है सारे बच्चों को। तो क्या हार्डशिप्स आपने देखी हैं जब आप छोटे थे, बच्चे थे?
बहुत मुश्किल टाइम गुजारा है हम, क्योंकि पापा PWD लेबर है और महीना का कमाई उसका 6,000 7,000 का होता है। और हम फैमिली में मेरा भाई है, हम 5 भाई है और मम्मी है, और मतलब मैनेज करने काफी मुश्किल होता है। लेकिन अभी मैं खुद अभी इंडियन आर्मी में हूँ, अभी थोड़ा कमाने लग गया हूँ, तो अभी सही चल रहा है हर चीज। और काफी मेरा फादर भी बॉक्सर है, नेशनल में भी काफी टाइम मेडल ले चुका है, और खुद का एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करता है मुझे क्या अच्छा होता है और कितना मेहनत करना पड़ता है इसके लिए। हर चीज मुझे शेयर करता है, और पूरा मेरा फैमिली बहुत इंस्पायर करता है मुझे।
तो आपकी फैमिली से क्या बात हुई? आप ग्रैंडफादर को अपनी फैमिली को डेडिकेट कर रहे हैं, क्या बात हुई आपकी अपने दादाजी से?
मेरे 2018 में यूथ ओलंपिक जाने से पहले मेरा ग्रैंडफादर का एक्सपायर हो गया था।
अच्छा।
तो बहुत बुरा भी लगा था, घर भी नहीं जा पाया। और उसके बाद 2018 में ही दादा जाने का थोड़ा देर के बाद दादी भी चला गया था। उन दोनों को मैं इसीलिए डेडिकेट करना चाहता हूँ। हाँ जी।
और अपनी फैमिली से क्या बात हुई आपकी?
बहुत बात हुआ, और इतना भीड़ भी हो गया था। मेरा घर में सभी गांव वाला आया था हमसे कॉन्ग्रेचुलेट करने के लिए, और अलग अलग न्यूज से भी। मम्मी पापा भाषा तो नहीं आता, लेकिन फिर भी जितना हो सकता है उससे मीडिया की तरफ से भी प्यार बहुत मिला है मेरा फैमिली को भी, और मुझे को भी बहुत अच्छा लगा मैम।
अच्छा, एक आखिरी सवाल जेरेमी, हमने देखा कि आप संकेत को भी बहुत चीयर कर रहे थे जब उनको भी अपनी परफॉर्मेंस के ड्यूरिंग इंजरी हो गई थी। तो ऐसा लग रहा है कि वेट लिफ्टिंग ने कंटिंजेंट ने बहुत अच्छा किया है अभी तक।
जी।
और बहुत कमरादरी है आप सब में, आप एक दूसरे को सपोर्ट करते हो, एक दूसरे के लिए इंकरेज करते हो।
बहुत सभी एक ही साथ ट्रेनिंग करता है। इस बार भी हमारा टीम, हमेशा हमारा टीम तो ठीक ही रहता है, बहुत अच्छा होता है हमारा टीम। काफी साथ में रहता है और काफी सपोर्ट करता है। और हम, जैसे मैं खुद को कहूँगा तो मैं जब हमारा कोई दोस्त है, हमारा कोई साथी या कोई पार्टिसिपेट कर रहा है, कोई स्टेज में उठा रहा होता है, कोई खेल रहा होता है, तो इतना जोर से चिल्ला देता हूँ कि मेरा बीपी एकदम हाई लो हो जाता है। एकदम ऐसे लग रहा है कि मैं उठा रहा हूँ उनका जगह में।
जी। एक बार फिर से आखिरी बार हमें अपना मेडल दिखा दीजिए, जो गोल्ड की चमक आपके ऊपर भी आ रही है। The gold is glittering in your hands under the sun, and many congratulations once again, Jeremy.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
In